What if I told you that simply exposing regular water to a magnetic field could turn it into a hair regrowth treatment? It might sound like science fiction, but a recent study suggests that magnetized water can activate cellular processes linked to hair regeneration. So could this be the next big breakthrough in hair loss treatments? You'll find out in today's video. Now guys, I want to preface today's presentation with a small caveat. A lot of what I'm about to say about magnetized water, though published in various scientific journals, is still considered very controversial. In other words, many researchers still believe that the research is not solid, that many studies lack rigorous controls or reproducibility, and that the whole idea of magnetized water is a complete and utter myth. There is generally a widespread scientific skepticism, even hostility, to any suggestions that water can somehow hold information in a way that goes beyond well-established principles of physics and chemistry. But on the other hand, a large number of publications on the purported effects of magnetized water are hard to dismiss out of hand. Whatever the case, take everything I'm about to say in this video with a small pinch of salt. So let's dive into the studies where researchers looked at using magnetized water for growing hair. So what exactly is magnetized water? Magnetized water is otherwise regular water that has been exposed to a magnetic field, which is believed to alter its molecular structure and properties. In practice, the strength and duration of the magnetic field applied vary widely depending on the equipment and methodology used. Magnetic fields can of course range from very weak to very strong, and the magnets can either be permanent or electromagnetic. The duration of exposure can also vary from mere seconds to several hours. These variations in field strength and exposure time can lead to inconsistencies in the outcomes reported in different studies. Be that as it may, once water is magnetized, several of its properties reportedly change, at least temporarily. And one of the most interesting properties involves water clustering. You see, in regular non-magnetized water, the hydrogen bonds make water molecules stick together in loose groups. These clusters can vary in size from 2 up to a dozen or more water molecules. When water is magnetized, however, these clusters are thought to undergo significant changes as the magnetic field influences the hydrogen bonds. Instead of larger irregular groupings, you get smaller but more stable clusters with a more consistent arrangement. This so-called restructuring is theorized to affect how the water interacts with its environment. So for instance, smaller clusters might be able to penetrate into surfaces more easily, improving water's ability to dissolve substances or be absorbed by biological tissues. This is a key talking point for properties of magnetized water, though once again, much of it rests on theoretical models and unverified hypotheses. Whatever the case, the two main applications of this technology are agricultural and medical. So in agriculture, magnetized water is being researched as a sustainable technology to boost crop growth and productivity. By irrigating plants with water exposed to a magnetic field, studies have shown significant improvements in plant height, root length, and overall biomass. Magnetized water also reportedly helps improve soil quality, particularly in dry or salty soils. But in the medical field where we're interested, magnetized water is being studied for its promising effects on various health parameters. Preclinical research on animal models suggests it may benefit conditions like diabetes, kidney function, bone health, and fertility. It's also being studied in dentistry, where it's being explored for its potential to reduce bacterial growth and improve oral hygiene. Though this research is in its very early stage. The effects are thought to occur because magnetized water boosts the body's natural antioxidant defenses and reduces oxidative stress, which is linked to many chronic conditions. Again though, these are all early stage findings that haven't crossed that threshold into scientific consensus. Which brings us to the main paper that we're looking at today. It has the rather long title of Topically Applied Magnetized Saline Water Activates Autophagy in the Scalp and Increases Hair Count and Hair Mass Index in Men with Mild to Moderate Androgenetic Alopecia. The study took place in Italy and the results results were published by a team of Spanish and Italian researchers. 20 men with hair loss were recruited. They were between 21 and 63 years old with phase 2 or phase 3 of hair loss. The study lasted 12 weeks and was open label, meaning there was no control group, and the participants knew that they were being treated with magnetized water. Throughout the 12 weeks, the men were not allowed to use any other topical or systemic treatment for their hair loss. And the treatment was a lotion made of 95% magnetized saline water. The water was the only active ingredient in the lotion. The men applied the lotion to their vertex and massaged it into the rest of their scalp once a day for the duration of the 12 weeks. The two main efficacy parameters were hair counts and hair mass index, a metric that combines density and thickness. At the end of the 12 weeks, the hair counts had increased from an average of 20.6 at baseline to 32.5, which was a large and statistically significant increase. The hair mass index also increased substantially. Last but not least, we also got a pair of before and after photos from one of the participants. While nothing to get too excited about, there is a very small amount of regrowth, it seems. I want to point out here that the lack of decent photos to back up the claims of increased hair count and increased hair mass index is a bit of a red flag here. The study also investigated the possible biological correlates of this regrowth, specifically focusing on autophagy. By autophagy, we refer to a natural cellular process whereby cells degrade and recycle their own components, like damaged proteins and organelles. The so-called self-eating mechanism helps remove dysfunctional parts, providing building blocks for cellular repair and energy production. And when it comes to hair follicles, the theory is that autophagy might be relevant for supporting the anagen growth phase of the hair follicle. It's possible that boosting autophagy could protect hair follicles from damage and prolong their anagen phase, potentially slowing or reversing the miniaturization process that we see in androgenetic alopecia. Scalp biopsies taken from 10 out of the 20 participants showed significant increases in two key autophagy markers, Beclin-1 and LC3B. Beclin-1 levels rose by 44% after the 12 weeks of treatment, while LC3B levels increased by 36%. In support of the idea that the regrowth was linked to autophagy, there was a correlation between the increase in these autophagy markers and the improvements in hair counts. In other words, the more these markers increased, the better the regrowth tended to be. So what do we make of all this? Well, you probably heard the saying that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And the idea that regular water can be magnetized and that can lead to growing back your hair is certainly an extraordinary idea. So we, for our part, would like to see further research, and ideally by independent scientists, before we can take these results at face value. Some might argue that the lack of control group and the open label status means that the study wasn't of particularly high quality, and they wouldn't be wrong. These are significant limitations to the study and make it difficult to draw a strong conclusion. So we would be welcome to larger studies that were both placebo-controlled and double-blinded, and above all, by different research groups. And of course, it would also be great to start seeing anecdotal evidence from members of the hair loss community who decide to self-experiment. After all, one thing we can be sure of is that there are no side effects from this kind of water, so whoever's interested can try this at home without involving a doctor. But I just want to keep your expectations realistic, and bear in mind that if something as simple as magnetized water really worked this well, we probably have seen widespread adoption by now, something that just simply hasn't happened. So while we remain very skeptical, it's always good to see new studies and ideas coming into the hair loss community and providing us potentially novel treatment options. For now, the lack of real results from users means this isn't something we could recommend. I also find it really interesting that in this study, they applied the lotion by massaging it into their scalp. Could that actually be one of the main reasons that their hair growth improved? We'll never know, but I think it's actually pretty likely. That amount of massaging taking place over 12 weeks is very likely to have a small but beneficial impact on the hair growth. Even if they just used regular water, I think we would have seen something similar. I also think it's worth looking at hair loss from a high-level perspective. A topical product like magnetized water could never fix the real root cause of hair loss. It's simply a band-aid solution. The real cause of male hair loss is compression of the dermal layer caused by chronic tension in the scalp, which leads to thinning and hardening of the scalp, which then in turn leads to reduction of blood supply and growth space to the hair follicle bulb. And that results in hair follicle miniaturization, which is a hallmark of male pattern baldness. The only product that actually fixes hair loss at the root cause is the Grow Band. And that's why it's slowly and steadily growing in popularity, especially with biohackers who are focused on fixing the root cause of their issues. Okay, that's it for this video. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I always answer the good questions. I'll see you in the next video.